In the previous video, we ended kind of quick on this term of bile acid, and we said that this was another group of steroids like cholesterol that is involved in our daily activity. And these bile acids are synthesized in the liver, they are stored in the gallbladder, and the purpose is to go out and to emulsify fats and oils, and it helps you digest them. Because let's face it, a lot of the things that we do are in a water environment, and these oils and these lipids have to be broken down, and that's the purpose of these bile acids. They go out and they allow that to happen. So these are two versions of what we would call a bile acid. Something like cholic acid can go out, do its job, break down some lipids, and start absorbing it for your body to use. Cholesterol, which is how this all got started in the beginning, is also the precursor to vitamin D. So vitamin D is kind of made from cholesterol, if you want to think of it that way. And cholesterol has a good rap and bad rap. We have things called LDL and HDL in our system. And HDL and LDL stand for high density lipoprotein and low density lipoprotein. So here in the PowerPoint, just know that this is low density lipoprotein, LIPO, and high density lipoprotein, HDL and LDL. So when you go to the doctor's office and they do a blood panel, and one of the things that they look for is your cholesterol content, how much cholesterol do you have in your blood system, they are going to give you a cholesterol number. HDL is what we call the good cholesterol, and LDL is this bad cholesterol that we're always worried about. The HDL in the PowerPoint, you're going to see that I'm going to refer to it as the garbage truck. The HDL, the high density lipoprotein, goes out and it basically picks up all of the unused cholesterol and returns it back to the liver. And the liver takes that cholesterol and converts it into bile acid, and that's kind of good for us, right? We need that bile acid when we can get it. The LDL is the bad cholesterol. That's the one that you kind of want to stay away from whenever possible. So that is the story with cholesterol, and cholesterol, like I said before, is probably the best known lipid just because of its correlation between its level in the blood and people with heart disease. So none of us want a heart attack, none of us want clotted up arteries. We want to eat healthy, we want to work out, we want to try to limit that cholesterol intake when we can, and then if we try everything that we can and it's just simply not working, then we turn to our statin drugs to allow that to help us. Cholesterol, where is it synthesized? Well, it's in the liver. It's synthesized in the liver. It goes out to all of the body tissues. Cholesterol is found in many foods, but we don't require it because we can synthesize all that we need. A diet high in cholesterol, well, you're going to get cholesterol in your bloodstream, and this gives plaque on your arteries and it restricts the blood flow, and this is something called atherosclerosis. So that's something that you want to stay away from and kind of prevent whenever possible. So work out, eat healthy, and you'll be okay. It's not a guarantee, but you'll be much better than someone who just eats greasy burgers and french fries all the time and sits on the couch and watches movies or plays on a video game as a couch potato all the time. Cholesterol travels through the bloodstream, and they are incorporated with everything from proteins to amino acids to phospholipids. You name it, it's out there. So the more cholesterol we eat, the least or less that your body makes, but also the less that your body can go out and get rid of the cholesterol and bring it back to the liver. So the diet is a very strong correlation with what we really do as far as cholesterol goes. Okay, so that really sums up this lipid lecture. We're not really going to talk about any more lipids or any more family of lipids. There is something, however, that I kind of skipped over, and I want to go back and I want to talk about this particular type of molecule. And this is something that we've mentioned before in the past, but I at least want to take a look at it again. And this was this structure known as Olestra. And you've probably seen me mention Olestra. If not, and this is the first time seeing it, then that's great news because all of this will be new to you. But Olestra back in the day was a molecule that tasted like fat, that looked like fat, and that our tongue recognized as maybe a fat, but our body did not. And many years have been put into this research that chemists would go into a laboratory and try to find a molecule that would act and behave and taste like fat to trick ourselves that we're eating fat, but not really be metabolized as fat. So that way they could lower the calorie content in foods, because some of us are calorie counters, calories in and calories out. And if we can have a limited number of calories in our diet a day, we burn more calorie than what we take in, we begin to lose weight. Well, that's some theory. Some theory is that if you don't bring in enough calorie on a daily basis, your body goes into a hibernation mode, and your body begins to store everything that it can get as much as it can, and it will refuse to burn it, and you actually can gain weight much quicker because of that. So you just really want to be careful. Many nutritionists now are telling you don't really pay too much attention to the calorie content. Just make sure that you're eating healthy foods, and make sure that you're eating every 4 hours, so that way that your metabolism can actually stay on track and not slow down or go into the hibernation mode. So don't be eating a buffet every 4 hours, but every 4 hours eat or drink at least something. So do a protein shake, or do, a healthy side of carrots, or some kind of handful of nuts. Every 4 hours you should be eating something that is very healthy for you to eat. Not Little Debbie chocolate cake, and not ice cream, and not chocolate bars, right? So the FDA finally approved Olestra a couple of years ago. When I say a couple of years ago, we're looking at the early 2000s, late 1990s, and Olestra began to be used in these food products as a substitute for fat in snack foods. And one of the snack foods that it really focused on in the beginning was our potato chips. And potato chips, of course, is the guilty pleasure for almost all of us. We can open up a bag of potato chips and sit there on the couch and eat them and eat them and eat them and eat them, and then the whole bag will be empty before we know it. The compound was in development for 30 years. 30 years they were working on this compound called Olestra, and it took $2 billion in order for the company to put in that much research and testing to make sure that it was safe and fit for human consumption. Olestra, what happened is that it took sucrose, so this was sucrose back in the carbohydrate lecture, and it took sucrose and esterified all of the OH groups off of sucrose. So sucrose was a carbohydrate, it's a disaccharide. It has all of these OH groups that are hanging off of those rings, and these OH groups were converted over into ester groups, C double bond O groups. And basically what happened is that we took sucrose, esterified it with all of the OH groups with fatty acids, basically veggie oil. And we want to know, why does this thing work? Well, the reason is because these ester groups that were added on with the fatty acid chains, the links are too strong to be broken. And if they can't be broken, the body just looks at this molecule and says, I can't do anything with you. You're foreign. So we're not going to process you, and we're just going to kind of pass you on through. So this was wonderful news for Olestra candidates back in the day, because now we could eat something. It tasted like fat, it looked like fat, it felt like fat, and by the time that you ate it and put it in your tummy, your body didn't do anything with it, and it just passed on through. It did not get metabolized at all. So it's all due to those ester linkages. So this is the structure for Olestra. It's actually the same structure on each side. They're just double dipped. And here's the 3D rotation for the Olestra molecule. You can see all of these oxygens here in the center. And all of these oxygens are the oxygens that are involved in the sucrose ring. And these oxygens come off of the sucrose ring. And we also also have oxygens that are involved in the C double bond O, that carbonyl of the ester group. And then off of each one of these ester groups, you see these arms of hydrocarbon. So an arm of hydrocarbon there, and one here, and one there, and one there, and one there, and one up here, and one up there. All of these arms of hydrocarbon just made this molecule a beast. And by the time you ate it, your body couldn't do anything with it. Your body could not break it down, and it just really had to pass through. So Olestra did not get metabolized. There was no calorie content in it at all. And then here are some of the products that Olestra was used in. So here's your fat-free Pringles and your fat-free Doritos, and anything that said the word light on the bag typically had Olestra in it. So in the ingredient list down here at the bottom, you're going to see potatoes, Olestra, Olean brand, salt, look, alpha tocopherol acetate. So this is basically vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin K, and vitamin D. Ooh, vitamins. This means this is healthy, right? It's light. There's no calorie content, or we've limited the calorie content to it, and we see all of these vitamins. So this means that this potato chip is good for me. So what began to happen was that people would buy a bag of light potato chips, and they would go home on their couch, and they would eat and eat and eat and eat them, because they weren't going by the nutrition size label. So the serving size is 1 ounce, 20 chips. Now, how many of us actually sit down and eat 20 chips and then say, okay, enough of that, I'm putting them back up? None of us do. So what was going on is that these people were sitting down on their couch, and they were eating all of these chips that were made with Olestra, that this compound could not break down. This compound was fatty and oily, and these compounds, Olestra, was going through the intestinal tract and not being metabolized or broken down. So here is the equivalent of drinking a tub of mineral oil. And what begins to happen is that mineral oil is a natural laxative. And guess what? So is Olestra. Because when people would eat too many potato chips and they would eat too much Olestra, it would actually coat the inner walls of the intestine, and it would become a natural laxative for people. And then we start getting reports from the FDA of people eating these potato chips and saying that they were having uncontrolled bowel movements. They were basically pooping on themselves, and they didn't understand why. You sold us these potato chips, and now we cannot control our bowel movements, and I'm going out into Walmart or another shopping center, and I'm getting these pains, and I can't control them, and then all of a sudden, oops, I pooped my pants. So people were beginning to have some serious side effects from eating too much Olestra, and that's exactly what happened. So did Olestra pay off? And the answer, in the first year in 98, P&G made $400 million off of it. In 2000, 2 years later, the profit fell in half, and this is due to what the product containing, their statement was, loose stools. Olestra may cause abdominal cramping and loose stools. Olestra inhibits the absorption of some vitamins and other nutrients. Vitamin A, D, E, and K have been added. So the proper term that we were using during the time to talk about Olestra and this side effect is that people complained of anal leakage. So imagine that. Imagine you having anal leakage in our computer room while you're doing lab because you were eating a light potato chip. It's kind of disgusting, isn't it? So FDA finally removed the label. When P&G sold the Olestra plant, they said that not enough people complained and showed side effects to list this adverse effect. And to this date, Olestra is still not approved in Europe or Canada, either one. So bye-bye Olestra. Not too much of you are on the market anymore. This was a disaster, but it could have been a good thing if it worked. However, back to the drawing board, back to those billions of dollars spent. So this concludes the lipid lecture. Stay, study, and do well on the test.